Alright, how's it going, guys? My name is Jack. I'm the creator of Jungle, and this is the second tutorial, guide, whatever you call it, for using Jungle. Again, I want to make sure to mention these are temporary tutorials, and they're just made really quickly, already edited and unscripted, purely because I'm just trying to get them out so I can explain it to people in a video form how to use Jungle. And later down the line, I'm gonna try to make these a lot more polished and better edited, etc. So just know that this tutorial is a little bit, unorganized. But I hopefully by the end of the tutorial, you'll know how to make nodes and stuff like that. So with that out of the way, let's just go ahead and get started with building our own nodes. Now nodes are a little bit confusing to learn to make. The nodes are the building blocks of Jungle, and so if you don't know how to build a node, then Jungle's not that useful for you. So a big thing about nodes is they're C# scripts. So you do need to know how to program in order to use Jungle. And again, that's why I like to say it's not really a visual scripter, because you have to program to use it. So let me think. There are 4 different types of nodes. And I'll teach you how to build each type. You have the identity, the IO node, the branch node, and the event node. And these different nodes are designed to be used in different use cases. So we'll go through all of them, but know that we're going to get started with the identity node, which is, in my opinion, the easiest to work with. And then we're going to get into the IO node, which is, it's pretty easy, but a little bit more complicated. And then the branch node, which in my opinion is the most complicated node, but it's super useful. We'll get into that a third. And then for the 4th, we're going to get into the event node, which is similar to a branch node, just doesn't have an input. But again, we'll get into that later. Let's get started by kind of understanding what nodes are in the first place. So I'm going to create a jungle tree just for the tutorial so we can actually see what's going on. And I'll open up my tree. Here it is. Okay. So you already know the start node is it's in there. It's a node. Specifically, the start node is an event node. You can see it doesn't have an input, but it has an output. The thing about event nodes is they can have multiple outputs. So one input, multiple outputs. A good example of an event node with multiple outputs is the trigger. I can bring this out. You can see we have two outputs. So you have a on enter output and then on exit output. And if I actually look into the scene, you can see we have our trigger right there. Let me customize to work exactly how we would expect. Okay, so now we know what an event node is. What about a identity node? So we can see an identity node is a wait for seconds node. Wait, okay. So that's an identity node. Why is it called an identity node? Well, watch this. If I delete its connection, you see how now its port type is NA? In this case, it doesn't stand for not available. It stands for not assigned. That could be temporary. I might change it later. But just know, this means not assigned. So this node type is these nodes are designed in a way that you use this node variant on nodes that never need an input or never need an output. So, or a specifically, declared input and output. So for example, the wait for seconds, what input are you going to put in a wait for seconds? Again, you can have a parameter for the amount of time to wait, but that's not how Jungle's designed to work. Jungle's just designed to have nodes that have self-contained logic and they perform their own logic. So having multiple nodes that perform a single piece of logic is really, it's inconvenient, and it's not what Jungle's made for. Although that would be, the preferred way to do that. In programming, it's just not here. And that's just one of those concepts you're going to have to grasp with Jungle, realizing, it's not for scripting. It's for building sequences of logic. As you can see, I can connect my start node to my wait for second node, and you can see that the output type of start, which is none, is set on this wait for second node. So now input's none and output's none. So another really good example of this is, for example, if we do like a find game object node, which I know outputs type game object, I connect that to my wait for seconds. Oh wow, look, it inputs and outputs game object. So what's cool about identity nodes is they do this completely automatically. So this is input. It's going to spit whatever was inputted out. Really, really simple. And you can put these into like a giant row. It's really easy, and then you can see it's pretty sweet. And then if you get rid of this, well, then they don't have anything assigned, so they break. So that's what an identity node is. All right, what about an input-output node, or an IO node, as I like to call it? Well, since it's input-output, find game object is a perfect node to explain that. while it doesn't take an input, it has an input, but it doesn't take any data as an input. It inputs none, and then it finds the game object by, whatever, the cube, and then it outputs that game object here. So these are strictly defined inputs and outputs. So for example, if I have another find game object node, I couldn't connect the output of this node to this one. It just doesn't work. So probably a more intuitive and easier to understand input output is the get transform, which takes an input of game object and then outputs a transform. So that's a really good input output node. Let me see if I can find a good branch node. I don't really use them much. They're very useful in a lot of cases, just not in the nodes that I necessarily built. 1 second. I believe one of these. Okay, I'm back. I figured out a branch node. So I'm gonna find game object so we can line this up a little bit better. So here's a good branch node. As you can see, we have our start node that goes into a find game object node that then goes into our clone game object node, which inputs type of game object and then outputs both the original game object and then the cloned game object. So yeah, this is useful in the case where you're like, okay, maybe I want to destroy the original for some reason, or I could keep giving you examples, but I think this is pretty self-explanatory. That's what a branch node is useful for. But here's the thing: this example doesn't show that also branch nodes can be used in a way that allows you to have obviously branching logic. So you don't have to call both of these ports at the same time. They can be called individually or at the same time. It's up to you as a developer. So for example, if you have a dialogue system and you have a dialogue choice for the player and they select a choice, you could have like the amount of outputs that you could have outputs that each are for a choice that the player can make, and then they make choice 1, then you can connect choice 1 or choice 2 or 3 or 4, and you can make branching dialogue that way. So that's where a branch node would be useful. So those are the 4 node variants, and they all serve different purposes. But what's really nice, and I made sure that I kept them as similar as possible, they're all built pretty much the same way. And the way that you in the code use them is slightly different. The boilerplate is very similar and very intuitive. And I'll show you that in a second here. Let's go ahead and let's delete those. Actually, I wanted to show something off. Let's do a wait for second stuff. This is okay node to show this off. If you're ever like, oh, I want to see how this node works, all these nodes are exposed, and you can actually look at them. So you go to edit script. Sometimes it doesn't work because I'm in like this weird high taskbar mode. I can go to jungle, runtime, nodes, and here's all of the nodes I can look at. I'm going to look at the wait for seconds node, and let's see what we're looking at. So, I can see, all of the code that is used to run this node. I mean, there's a lot here, but pretty much what it is it's just, this is the code that runs that node. So you can see we have the variables at the top, like the duration, the scaled time. These are some variables that are unnecessarily non-serialized. I don't know why I did that. Whatever, I'll fix it later. We have the onStart method, which, as you can see, does a couple of setup stuff. And then if we scroll down, you can see the onUpdate call, which let's see, it gets the current time, and that's if the duration is greater. If duration is greater than the current time minus the start time, then we bail, and we keep checking that every frame until we're done, which is where we call and stop. So yeah, just know that you're always able to go in and see nodes. So for example, we can look at this one. It really stinks that I'm unable to use that edit script button. It's very inconsistent. But it's not my fault. It works sometimes, it works, it doesn't work other times. It's not my fault. I don't know why Unity is like that. Let's see, here it is. For example, we have actually find game object is a very large script. Let's look for a simpler one. We can do the transform node. There it is. Okay. So as you can see, this is a type of IO node, and you can see that we have an input on. So we have there's a parameter on our start method of type game object. Ooh, isn't that interesting, right? So essentially what we're doing with this script is we're checking if the game object is null. If it is, then we're throwing an exception, which specifically a jungle exception, because obviously if the node breaks, then why would we continue? It makes no sense. And if we do succeed in that, then we just call and stop with the transform, since the call and stop actually takes a type of output value, and that is included in the call. I believe works exactly the same way. Transform. But do know, stop does not take anything. Put it back the way that it was. So there's a good example of an IO node. I don't need to show all the examples. Just know that you can go into these nodes, every single pre-built node, and you can see how I made them and how they work on the inside. Okay. Another thing I want to explain about nodes, to try and make it a little bit less confusing when you're building nodes, is what Jungle is doing with your C# scripts. The nodes themselves are always C# scripts, but what Jungle is doing is visualizing your scripts. So it's making it really easy, and it does all of that stuff automatically, which is so convenient and so easy. And that's what's great about Jungle. And I'm about to show you just how easy it is to make a node right now. So we're going to learn how to use the Node Fabricator. I'm going to move that up there. So what is the Node Fabricator? It's a system I designed because I was sick of typing all the boilerplate for a node. So this will generate the boilerplate for your node, where then you can quickly start typing code. So I'll show you what that means. Okay, we're gonna go right-click in the projects folder, and we're gonna go to create, and then Jungle node. It's gonna open up this little menu right here. We can set a title. We're gonna call this my identity node. Actually, you don't need to call it my identity node. So you can put spaces and stuff in the title, and it'll automatically. This is right here the name it's gonna generate for your C# file, which is my identity node.cs. Also, if you type node a second time, it'll remove it, so it'll automatically type this. For categories, we're gonna do tutorial, and then description. This is an identity node. And I'll set the color to like green is okay. For the icon, I'm gonna do this like lightning bolt icon. And then, as you can see here, you have this methods drop down, so you can add these optional methods to your code in automatically. So there we go, we can hit next. You can always add those later, by the way, you don't need to do that right now. And as you can see, we have the 4 variants that we can choose from. I'm going to choose the identity node, because that's what we're building. So I'll select it. As you can see, we can customize the input port's name, and then the output port's name. I'm happy with how they're both named right now, but do know that you can actually turn the output port off, or remove it. A really good example of a node without an output port that is an identity node, I believe, is a stop node. So as you can see, it doesn't have an output, because it would be unnecessary to have an output, but you can put anything into it. So anyway, let's press create, and it's going to automatically create the script. And now, look at this. If I scroll in here, let's see where our tutorial folder is. Oh, there it is at the bottom. And there's our node. So we already have a node. We don't have to write any code. But watch this. I'm going to double click this. I want you to notice this is a C# script. Don't let the icon and stuff confuse you. This is a C# script. If you open it, here is your node. So what can we do with this? Well, we can do like a debug log. Say hello from the identity node. And then when your node is done performing, its logic, you need to always either do a call and stop or a stop. Otherwise, this node is going to go on forever. It'll never stop. Additionally, I do want to mention, you can actually call the port and not stop the node. So for example, if you want to, create like a for loop where you can call the output like 10 times and then stop. That's totally possible as well. But for simplicity, we're just going to do call and stop. I like to collapse the on update like that. Try not using it. You can't remove it. It's impossible. It gets mad at you. The on update and on start are required methods within the script. As you can see at the top, we can actually edit some properties. So for example, the title, which you can set to anything you want, the description as well, the category and the color, as well as the input and output port names. So here, if we go back in, you can see that now if we actually connect our nodes together and press play, we should be able to see when I play the tree, since we're connected to our start node, and I hit play, there it is, hello from the identity node. Pretty easy. I'll keep it in for now. Oh, wait, you know what? Actually, let me show you changing it. So, for example, if I want to set a new name, my identity node, and I'm just going to make it really hard. I'm going to do like that. You can actually add like special characters, it doesn't matter, since it's not referred to by that. But look at that, there we go. You can change your nodes from here. There we go. Pretty cool. So there we go, we have that. Now, let's create the IO node. And go into here again, we're gonna hit create, go to jungle node, call this my IO node. I'll put in the tutorial category again, and we'll say, what do we write for the other one? We wrote, this is an identity node, this is an IO node. Cool. What color should we do? Let's do, we could do pink. We'll set the icon to something. I don't know what looks interesting. Let's just do the lightning bolt. No need to overcomplicate it. And I'm gonna hit next. I'm gonna go to IO node. Now you can see we have a few more options now. So we can set the input port's name as well as the type. Now remember, input-output node has very specifically defined port types. So you can see this is port.none, which is what the start node, for example, outputs. So this would input and output none. What I can do is I can search for a different type. So if I wanted to, here's every single variable that my system can find. But do know you can just type it yourself. So you're like, oh, I want to find transform, it'll do that. But do know if you put a typo there, you will have a compilation error. So just know that. I'm gonna do port.none, or I can just go in here and I can hit port.none. And also with the input-output, you can turn off the output port if you want. Let me think. Let me output a number. And we'll use this node with our other nodes that we'll create in a second. Actually, I'm gonna set the name to number, and then we'll keep the name as start. That's fine. Let's hit create, and I'm gonna search for it this time. I'll do IO node. There it is. And I'll drag it in. So there we go. Now we have our IO node. You can see it has an input type of none and an output type of integer, which is our number. So pretty cool. As you can see, if I go and edit, oh wow, look, see what I mean? It works now. That makes no sense. You can see that now our IO node takes an input type of none, which you can see on this, and I automatically denote it as an underscore to show that you'll never use it. That's done by the Fabricator itself. And you can see we have, again, the node properties, and then we have a different attribute for the IO node, where we can set the output port type, as well as the input port name and output port name. So if you're like, oh, actually, I want to input a different type, well, you can change this to whatever you want. So, like, example, if we want to, I don't know, input a string, or maybe we're creating like a system for parsing. Well, we just set this to string, and then this to, something else. I can say my string. There you go. If I let it compile, you'll see that Jungle will automatically update that change. So there we go. Now it inputs type string. So pretty cool, right? All right, let's return to where we were with port.none. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to collapse the onUpdate, and I'm going to do a var random number. Set equal to random dot range. I'll do between 0 and 4. Let's do between 1 and 3. And then, yep, that's already an integer. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to call and stop random number. So now our IO node will find a random number and then call it to our output. So there we go. We already have a input-output node. Great. Now let's create the branch node. So go here, we'll go to create, go to jungle node, and I'll say, okay, my branch node. Then the category, we'll do tutorial, and then this is a branch node. I'm gonna do blue. I always do blue for my branch nodes. Where is it? There we go. And I'll set this again to the lightning bolt. Hit next. Go to branch node. Okay, we're starting to get more options. So weirdly, yeah, you can turn the input and output port off on a branch node. Figured I might as well do it. So that is possible there. You can see we have multiple output ports and input ports. We can add a port and we can remove them using these icons, and you can even move them around. So I'm gonna make my input number. I'll set my type to integer, which again I can just type it if I wanted to, and I'm gonna do this one is gonna be number 1, number 2, another one, or number 3. So there we go. We have our little input, output, or little branch node. I'm gonna hit create. And there we go. It's gonna start generating our code. And then what I can do is go here and I'll just search for branch node. Ooh, there it is. And as you can see, it has an input of number, output of 1, 2, and 3. And we're gonna use that with our IO node that outputs a random number. So yeah, let's go into our script. And as you can see, we now have, again, the node properties. That's easy. And we have our branch node attribute. As you see, it's a little bit more complicated than the other nodes, but you can see that we have, instead of output port name, it's plural and it's an array. So if we want to, we can keep adding to it if we wanted. You know, oh, we want a number 4, but now you know you need to do another type. So now if I save, you can see it'll automatically give us another one because Jungle will detect the change and add it. Pretty cool. I'm gonna reverse that change. There we go. Okay, so now let's make our code work. As you can see, we are taking an input of integer, which is our value. And so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do a if, I'll do value equals 1, then we'll call and stop, new call, and we'll do 0, and then we'll type nothing. Literally type nothing. Okay, what did I just do here? So the call and stop on the IO node, you remember, was just the value we wanted to output, where in this case, we have to specify to Jungle exactly which port we want to call on our node. So in the call and stop, we give it something called a port call. And inside the port call, our first parameter is the output port index. So in this case, in code, indexes always start at 0. So this port right here is port 0, port 1, index 0, port 2, index 1, port 3, index 2. A little bit confusing if you're newer to programming, but just know that you could do that. And the reason I typed the word nothing here is because it's just easier to type the new port dot none like that. That's just annoying and it's not as convenient. So I just like to type nothing, which is literally the equivalent to typing port dot none, new port dot none, just to make your life a little bit easier. So now we'll do like an else if, do value equals 2. And we can bring this in here, change the index to 1, so we'll call it second port. And then we'll do this the third time, or if value is 3, we'll call the second port, or output port. So, great. But you're probably wondering, can we call multiple ports at once? Oh, definitely. That's totally possible. I'm gonna actually go down a little bit further to show you how to do that. So we'll go here, and what we'll do, I like to bring it down like this, so it's a little bit easier to read. And what I can do is I can do a new array. So you do new with the square brackets and then these curlies, and then you just throw all of your port calls in here. So you can do port 1, port 2, and then port 3, all in the same call. And again, this works exactly the same if you just do call and stop again in this node, and every node does not have any outputs. You are not able to just do call without any parameters or call and stop without any parameters. They require a port call. So yeah, get that out of the way. There we go. Pretty cool. So great, now let's go back to our nodes. And I'm going to connect to my own node to these start nodes. We can see if we can get something. Our identity node is just going to be over here. There's not much use, and not really much. Yeah, actually, we could just wait a second if we wanted to. I'm not going to show you how to make a wait for seconds node since it's already in the tool, and I think it'd just waste some time. We'll do something like this. So there you go. Here's our makeshift identity node. Now let's do a debug log and do the number was 1. I'll just copy that a couple times. Just like that. And then I'll do the number was 2. The number was 3. Okay. So there we go. Let's try our tree out. Play mode. So I'll just make, oops, there we go. Make my screen a little bit bigger, select my tree, and then I'll hit play. And then let's look at our output, and you'll see it will output the random number that was chosen. Do look though, watch as the nodes run. You'll notice that the wait for seconds node is going to wait a second before calling this node. So you will see a little progress bar, and the nodes will light up as they're playing. That's a useful way of knowing when something is gone. So you can see that it chose the number 1. If we run it again, it chose 2 this time. It chose 2 again. So now we've created a random number generator. We can just keep pressing it. Oh wow, it likes 1. That's pretty, wow. Wow, 5 times? That's pretty crazy. Geez, 6? Okay. Okay, there, 2. Can we get 3? Will it ever be 3? Okay, maybe it just doesn't feel like it. It's very impressive. It always chooses 1 or 2. Maybe it's not as random as we believe it is, right? Well, anyways, there's that. I'm going to build the last node with you guys, the event node, but I don't really know necessarily how to, showcase it in what we made. We can go to create, we can do jungle node, my event node, the category tutorial, the description. This is an event node, and then we'll do yellow with the lightning bolt as per usual. And we'll select the event node here, and we'll just keep it the way it is. And as you can see, we can add ports and move them, as well as move them up and down if we wanted to. So, pretty cool. There we go, let it compile. And there we go. Now, we can just go in here and you can see it's organized. There's our event node. As you can see, it has no input port, just an output. Okay, let's go to edit the script. As you can see, you can define a bunch of output ports, but because it only has 1, it looks like this. As you can see, there's no input on the start. And it works just like the branch node output, where you can do either a single port call, which you do like this, and you can do like nothing if you want to do port nothing. This value, by the way, can be like, maybe it's a string, hello world, or it can be a number, 100, or it can be a float, 100f. This can be whatever you want, but make sure that in your output you always declare the type you're going to output. So, pretty cool. This right here will declare the output type. So if you output something different than what is declared here, Jungle will allow you to connect them, but you will get a port type variable mismatch exception, which will stop the tree. No, actually it'll stop the nodes. So do know that there is that check, and you will know if you accidentally make a mistake there, but also know that it's also going to stop your trees from running. Or your nodes from running. Just keep it as nothing because it doesn't matter. So you're probably curious then, when does the start or the event node start running? We have all these nodes start running as soon as they're connected to. So when does it start running? Well, we'll show you that right now. I'm actually disconnect this node because I don't want it to run our code. Put that up there, and let's go back to our script. What we can do is we can debug log do hello from the event node. I'm just gonna do stop. Or well, I could just do a call and stop at the first port. Just like that. There we go. Collapse the on update because I'm not using it. There we go. If we save, there we go. So now we have our event node. So let's watch. When I press play and I run the tree, you'll see it'll automatically call the hello from the event node. As you can see, our tree stopped running instantly. But for example, if you want to keep your event node running, you can add this, and you can do prevent auto stop while active, and you can set it to true. It's by default it's false, and then what you can do is you can never it will not automatically stop the tree, or I'll put that like that. We don't need the call, doesn't matter. There we go. If we let it when you let it compile, so exit play mode. Okay, press play again. It's compiled. And you'll see if I press play, the tree will keep running, and it will keep outputting, our message on update. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and that's the 4 node variants. And learning how to use them effectively in your logic, that is the hard part. So really, you can just use these combinations of nodes to create some really, really slick systems. And yeah, I don't think I really need to go into much more, but do know that there's more tutorials coming that will have more information on expanding your nodes and customizing them a little bit further. But for this tutorial, mainly looking at just making them in the first place and coding them. I do want to mention, I tried my best to make the nodes as similar to mono behaviors as possible, so that it wasn't such a learning curve to start using them. Although you need to type the methods a little bit differently, they're still super useful or super similar and useful, just like the mono behaviors that they are, trying to essentially copy. But yeah, with that out of the way, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and yeah, good luck.